Hello everyone, my name is Lydia and I am here to talk about book publishing and specifically today, how your family and friends really don't care. Now, disclaimer, this is a bit of a snappy title. I am in no way here to, complain about my family or friends. I have incredibly supportive family and friends. I'm probably not the person who should be giving you this advice because, honestly, my family was very excited for me to publish a book, and so are my friends, and I have it pretty good as far as support goes in my life, but that doesn't really change the fact that this is something you're probably going to have to deal with when you publish your first novel, or self publish your first novel, or even just share your work. Um, your family and your friends really probably aren't going to care. They're not going to care about it. They're not going to care. And I'm going to go into this in more detail. So if you hear that, family and friends of mine, don't be upset. Stick around for the end of the video. Something to consider when you are so excited because you're about to share your first novel, or you just completed your first novel, or maybe you're getting your novel published, or maybe you got a book deal. That is huge. First of all, congratulations from me. That is amazing. I know how huge that is. Wow, you're awesome. Um, but the fact of the matter is you've been in this, and you probably, writers tend to not be super social people always. Sometimes they are. Not all writers are introverts. But writing is kind of a singular activity for the most part. So odds are you have been fighting this battle, struggling through this huge endeavor, maybe for years, and people don't really know what you've been doing. They go, oh, she's writing, maybe they know she's writing a book, or maybe they'll ask you when your book's gonna come out. And like maybe these people have a vague notion of, oh yeah, she wants to be a writer. But that doesn't mean they're gonna know what that entails for you. They're not gonna know how many hours you poured into this project. They're not going to know how many darlings you killed, how many drafts you revised, how much you've struggled. They're not going to know how big of a deal this is for you. And by all means, talk about it if they're interested. If you want to have a conversation, talk about your process, and if they're curious, share. By all means, share. But it's not on you to prove yourself or to have to educate your friends and family about just how big of a deal this is. Like, what you have to accept before you get to this point is that they're probably not going to get it. Unless they've also written a novel and are writers themselves, they're probably not going to get it. And it's not your responsibility to make them get it. You don't have to prove your worth to anything, or the worth of your book. And that kind of leads me into the next point that I have, that your self-worth doesn't come from your book. It doesn't come from what you've written. And so your friends and family's inability to maybe see the worth in your book, or even the work that you put into it, does not mean they can't see the worth in you. Your worth is not your book. It's not in the thing you've written. It's not in what you've produced. So if your family and friends don't care, honestly don't care, or just don't really understand, whatever camp it falls into, whether they don't care, they don't understand, they won't read your book, they won't buy your book, them not valuing your book as much as you do doesn't mean they don't value you. And that's something that's sometimes hard for writers to separate in their mind, I think, because you poured so much of your life into this. It's kind of like your baby in a sense. And then people just, oh, cool. They don't really care. And that can be a little hard to not be offended by, I think, because it feels like you put so much of yourself out there and people don't even care to look at it. But your book is not you. It's hard as a writer because it's such a personal thing. You're pouring your heart and your soul into the story. Um, Sharing your work is kind of like sharing a diary in certain ways. You're really opening yourself up to not only criticism, um, but you're sharing your passions with people. And when people aren't interested in your passions and in something that you've poured hours and hours of your life into, that can feel a little hurtful. Um, but it's not that deep, guys. That's what you gotta remember as an author, is that it's not that deep. And your family and your friends, I hope that they are excited for you and happy for you. Um, but you know what? They might not buy your book. People don't like buying things that they're not going to use. And odds are, even if they do buy your book, they might not read your book, or they might, ask you to buy them a copy of your book so that they can read it. It's a sticky situation, and if you're a reader who's listening to me say these things and go, "Oh, I didn't realize that was offensive," it's fine. It's fine. I've heard these things before, and I'm not offended by them because people just don't know. They don't really get it. And that's why I'm kind of making this video, not so you can snarkily share it with all your families and friends and be like, oh, you need to appreciate me more, but so that you, as an author, as a writer, can just adjust your expectations going into it. Your core demographic, your readers, it can't just be your friends and family. You can't just sell to your friends and family. If you have a product that you want to do well, it has to go outside of that if you're looking into selling. You're not going to be able to be a writer who sustains themselves with writing if only your friends and family read it. I mean, at this point, not many more people than my friends and family have read my book, and I am so appreciative to the ones who did. But I know that I'm not going to make a living. I'm not going to have a worldwide, best-selling book if my aunt who hasn't read my book would just finally read it. Oh, my second cousin didn't buy my book. Well, come on, how am I supposed to succeed as an author? That's not how it works. Their sales are not going to be what makes or breaks you, honestly. So, don't build that up into something bigger than it is in your mind. Whether or not your family values your novel or likes it or buys it or reads it is not indicative of how they value you as a person. People aren't readers, guys. Like, I know in the writing community and the bookish community, it seems like everyone's just, oh, books. Who wouldn't love books? But that's not really the majority of the world. I mean, not many people are passionate about reading, and that's something that you can't just hold against people. Just because you, their sister, their niece, their daughter, whatever, just because you, or son, if you're a guy, just because you wrote a book doesn't automatically make them a reader, you know? And that's something to consider. Do you really want to force your loved ones into reading something that you wrote when they're not going to enjoy it? And that's something to really consider. Like, do you just want so many people to read your book if you know they're going to hate it? I would rather not put someone through that. If they're not going to like my book, they don't have to read my book. Please go do something you would like to do. There's gonna be hurt feel. It's a painful process, and you might get your feelings hurt a little bit. I mean, maybe you have an avid reader in your family who reads all the time and loves the genre that you wrote in, and they're still not gonna spend $15 and buy your book and read it. And that probably hurts a little bit, and you just gotta let it go because maybe they're not in the mood to read that kind of book. Maybe they've promised so many other people that they would read their books ahead of you and they just can't make that commitment anymore. Maybe they feel really awkward reading and reviewing a family member's book. I mean, these are all things that you have to struggle with and everyone has to struggle with. So I just thought I would share my thoughts on the matter and just encourage everyone that people have different hobbies. Not everyone's a reader. And just because maybe your friend or your family member did not read or buy your book, it doesn't mean they don't value you. It doesn't even mean that they're not proud of you for having done that. They just have their own lives and their own priorities, and they weren't the one sledging through writing a novel for 3 years. And just to really encourage you to let it go and don't let that discourage you or affect that relationship with that person at all. And don't bring it up, don't ask. I mean, I found that people who have read my book, for the most part, remember to tell me that they have read my book. They want to say that to me, and so I don't keep following up with people. Have you read it? Have you read it? Because odds are the answer is no, and it's just puts a weird amount of pressure on that interaction between you and the other person every time you see them. So yeah, just know that other authors and other writers and readers, these are good people to make friends with so that you can encourage one another this way, because people who are not in it, people who are not writing, they're not going to fully understand the accomplishments and the milestones. So it's nice to, I mean, not that they can't still talk to you about that or be happy for you, but if you really want that kind of support and that one-on-one interaction about all of these things, if you want that understanding and validation, I suggest joining some internet communities or reaching out to local authors, going to events, and finding some people who do understand, because not everyone has writers naturally as friends. I've been really lucky. A lot of my family members, a lot of my friends I found at a young age are writers. So we can encourage each other in that way. But not everyone has that. And that is important, but don't expect that, your non-writer, your non-reader, friends and families are going to rise up and fill that gap and be that person for you. Find that support and validation from other authors if you can, because don't mind that. That's my loud dog who thinks I should be playing with him instead of filming. Anyway, just a note of encouragement. If you have written a novel, if you're working on a novel, if you've published a novel or any kind of writing, I'm proud of you. And I wish you all the best. And just remember, your worth is not in your work, and people can love you and never read your book. So good luck, and I'll talk to you again next time. Bye.